I got a 2004 Toyota Camry with the JBL premium audio system. I'm going to be removing the radio and installing an aftermarket doubled-in radio with Bluetooth. On this vehicle, you got to remove this AC heater panel control, and there's going to be 4 screws from underneath, 2 on this side and 2 on this side, with 10mm heads on them that you can remove with the nut driver or ratchet or whatever. And that's actually what's holding the radio in place. After removing those screws or those bolts, you're going to be able to remove this whole panel with the radio intact and put it on the bench so you can separate it from the dashboard. As you can see, I already removed the panel, and I'll show you right now. There's 2 bolts right there, 1, 2, and then there's another one back there and another one on the right side back up there too. So what I have here is an actual tool to remove the bolts. I went ahead and removed those 4 bolts from underneath, and if you notice, the radio will slide out just like that. First thing you're going to want to do is unplug it from the rear, reach with your right hand while holding it with your left ear, and go back there and unplug the antenna and the main harness to the radio. This radio should have only 1 harness as opposed to the non-JBL systems that have 2 harnesses. Now, the main harness that I unplugged from the radio is this one right here. This is to the JBL premium amplifier that's installed in the vehicle. But say, for example, maybe you're having problems with the amplifier, or you can't get the harness by Metra, and you want to, say for example, you want to bypass the amplifier and go directly to the speakers, you can go down here, and if you notice, there's 2 harnesses here. This one, and there's a smaller one right next to it. That one, the blue one and the white one. You can unplug it from there and use the regular Metra 1761 harness and go directly to the speakers, therefore bypassing the JBL premium amp. These 2 harnesses will give you the power ground speakers. The blue one will give you the rear speakers. This one has the power ground front speakers too. Being that we have both harnesses, I'm going to keep the JBL sound system, since the original radio was working properly and the amplifier too. There was no problem with the speakers popping or engine noise or anything like that, so I'm going to keep the JBL premium system working with the new radio. Here's the factory radio and the dash bezel removed from the car. It's all attached as one piece, but it looks that way, but it separates from each other. And I got the new radio already mounted on the dash kit. If you notice, it needs a kit because otherwise the dash is wider than the new radio, so it'll leave gaps on the side. And you cover it up with this dash kit that comes with the brackets attached to it, and it bolts on the same way the original radio was bolted up. Right now what I'm going to do is separate this radio from this dash, and if you notice back here, it's clipped on here, here, and also one in there and one on this side too. So you just have to unsnap it from there and it'll separate it from the bezel. Now you'll notice the dash bezel that was attached to the original radio. You'll notice where it has to separate from this little clip, this one, and the 2 bottom ones. Usually I get a little panel plastic tool and just kind of pry it a little bit, and it'll separate off the radio, or even the long screwdriver to reach these while the radio's in there and just kind of bend it out of the way a little bit, and that'll separate the radio. Now I'm just going to grab this bezel and snap it onto the new one after I mount the radio, of course, first. This is the new harness. I actually crimped it on to the JBL Premium Metra harness, the radio harness. All I'd require was power ground and remote turn on. The rest are RCAs instead of speaker wires, and this is to keep the premium system from working, or actually to work basically. This end will plug into the radio, and the other one will plug into the car. This will plug into the back of the radio, being that this radio will have more than 1 set of RCA pre-outs. And that's it, and it'll plug into the car, and I'll show you in a bit how it looks. I wanted to show you guys the back of the new radio. If you notice, I plugged in the RCA cables both to the front and rear outputs. The harness plugged in there. The microphone for the Bluetooth will plug in there after I mount it and route the cable to the dashboard, and then this one will plug into the car. Usually it's best using harnesses. It makes the job a lot easier. You'll notice that instead of cutting and trying to figure out what wire's what. Hopefully I can show you a good image. This tint right here is kind of making it a little dark up here. But if you notice, I placed the microphone right here because it grips on well on the headliner, and then what I'll do is route the cable all alongside here, down the pillar, underneath the dashboard, of course. And then I'll route it back up here to the dash, plug in the radio, and drop the radio in there and screw it in. I'll show you in a bit how everything's going. Okay guys, as you can see, I already routed the microphone up to the dashboard. You notice it up there, and then you see no wires because I just tuck in the wire all alongside there and down here and underneath the dashboard back up to the dash. I'm just going to plug in the radio end into there, plug in the antenna to the radio, and then mount the radio back the way it was. Or actually, the new one's going to bolt on the same way the original one was, using the 4 bolts at the bottom of the dashboard. As you can see, I already placed the radio on the dashboard, and I bolted the 2 bolts here and the other 2 bolts there, but I halfway screwed them on, and you'll see why, because when you put the bezel back over it, sometimes it leaves a little slight gap here or at the bottom or in the sides, and it allows you to place the dash bezel over it and bolt it on after. That way you can get a good alignment on the dashboard or the dash bezel. Now back to where I was talking about bolting the radio later after. It's because of this. Sometimes if you bolt it up too high, it'll leave a gap in the bottom or in the top. So I'll adjust it, and while I'm adjusting it and holding it into place, I'll go ahead and bolt down the bolts. So I went ahead and bolted the radio while holding the the radio together to even it out with the dashboard. And before I pop the AC heater controls back in there, I'm going to actually try out the radio, make sure everything's working properly, and then snap it into place. Of course, I'll plug in the AC control before starting the car and leave it hanging out until I'm actually finished testing it. So there's a radio playing. Everything checked out okay.
Do you know when the best time for a cold?
It's working. So I'm just going to go ahead and snap this back into place, and I'm actually done. Remember guys, using the right dash kit, the right wire harness makes the job a lot simpler. Using the right tools to remove the dashboard or the bolts makes it a lot easy. So make sure you have the right tools to do the job, and you should be all good. Thanks again for watching, and look for future videos of installations for other types of vehicles in the near future.